As an investor for the last 30 years, consulting for as many years. I've been coaching businesses for the last 15 years, and 5 years ago, I started a mentoring program that we call Peers on Demand as a way to be able to bring in leaders and communicate. And certainly, this is very topical for me to be able to. Self-centric is probably our default behavior. Value genetic or generating value is a learned behavior. I don't think it comes naturally, but we learn it because of self-preservation. It's better for us to be together than against each other. Self-preservation, saying we start off preserving ourselves out of fear or flight or fight. And then a learned behavior is, how do we collaborate? How do we work together? How do we help each other, grow each other? I think that's a learned behavior. And certainly value genetics is a learned behavior. Simply because we understand that if we can create more value for others, we receive even more. And so it's almost like, it's a total shift of a mindset, and it has to be very conscious. I think our subconscious is more self-preservation because of the fight flight instincts or the freeze, and so we have to be proactive. We have to say, what do we do better? How do we create a good and the attributes that helps and serves our purpose? These are conscious efforts. This isn't a learned behavior. We have to stop and learn this even more and communicate it to others. The ones that you said, Diana, the wars, the Iran, the people that are fighting this. And as they fight it, it causes a lot of harm for the rest of us. But I took a different perspective then, a higher view of that. In the last 100 years, last 200 years, last 500 years, we've continuously progressed exponentially, more so in the last 100 years. And I'm thinking the next 100 years are going to be even better because we're uncovering the opportunity to create more value. I really firmly believe that the conflicts that we have, and yes, we're always going to have some conflicts, but they're going to be diminishing more and more so, simply because we're growing up. We're getting more adult. I think we're going through our teenage life years and learning the values that we need, or the valuable persons that we need to do and create that. So we're going through a growth stage, and I think inevitably we all will learn that providing value is more important for others, and we benefit tremendously. I think we get it. The subconscious is very dominant in our, whether it's 85% 15 or 80-20, it's dominant. And the key here that I'm learning more and more about this is that the subconscious is part of us. We take it wherever we go. And more importantly, we could command our subconscious subtly or directly to be able to do that, to do whatever we wanted to. For instance, sleep. You could probably command yourself to just go to sleep, or to be able to think of things. So I'm learning more and more that has a bigger aspect in our improving ourselves continuously. And certainly we use 100% of our brain all the time. I think you can't parse it out. But there are some times that you don't use any part of the brain, which is intriguing. Zero brain usage, and that happens to be in a high state of flow where there is effortless, timeless, selfless, and that means not using your brain, or actually not using your critical thinking, that you go forward. So it's very interesting to be able to have that kind of perspective. But that's setting aside from the value, which I have a different perspective. But I do believe in the subconscious and to be able to train it, to be able to use it, to be able to get to a higher level of flow. Subconscious, more often, it gives you a direct path to a flow state. And the flow state is where I think ultimately we want to be, where everything is just going the right way, the way that we want it. And I think the speaker's talking about values as a way to get us into that direction so that we do the right thing at the right time for the right reason with the right people. And he calls it good and attributes and purpose. So we're talking the same things, different language, but that's what I'm thinking about the subconscious part. But there's a direct aspect of values and beliefs and values that affect behavior, but certainly what Mary's talking about, which values do we pick, but it's more important, what results do we want? And in order to get the results, we have the behaviors and the skills to get to the results. I think that's the context, the linear path from values to behaviors to results. It's value alignment. What are the values that I want? And I get that you want some. Now you want to find the right practices or beliefs and behaviors to get you the results. Here's something that I always like to boil it down to as simple as possible, but not that simple. The 60-40 rule. 60-40 rule. And since I started to learn it a year or two ago, things have gotten better. And the 60-40 rule is this: do 60% for other people and 40% for oneself. And when I presented that to others, they go, well, like my wife says, shouldn't you be doing 100% towards her? And I said, no, I think that's kind of, at 100%, I'll be dead. So I want 60% is more than me. So I think of her 60% more and 40% myself, because I think it has to be both ways. And in essence, taking it to what the speaker's talking about when he says, get rid of the word I, mine, me. And I thought, oh yeah, that's part of it. So when I start to work with somebody, talk to somebody, I'm thinking, what is my 60% with others? How do I think more about them? And I picked 60% because there's the opposite, the 40-60 rule. The 40-60 rule is very intriguing, is like 40% is when somebody, and I could speak to what Sarah is as a bicyclist, when you put all your effort out, when you're drained, maybe lack of sleep is probably, it's when you're totally exhausted, and I'm talking more physically and maybe mentally, because sometimes they intertwine. You're actually only at 40%. You can go another more. Of course, if you go to 100%, you die also. So that's where I learned the 40-60 rule. So that applies to the individual. If I'm at 40% and I've run marathons, and at the end of that, it's like, oh, I'm very exhausted. And then I learned that people run ultra marathons 3 times as much. I'm thinking, how's that possible physically? So apparently, physically, it can be done. I think I have to retrain my brain and my body, my motivation to do that. So that's the 40-60 rule. And the flip side is the 60-40 rule, that we think more about others than ourselves.